Unit 3, Prose, in celebration of being alive, by Dr. Christian Barnard. Part 2. One morning, several years ago, I witnessed what I call the Grand Prix of Cape Town's Red Cross Children's Hospital. It opened my eyes to the fact that I was missing something in all my thinking about suffering. Something basic that was full of solace for me. Grand Prix, here, one of several international motor racing events. Solace, comfort or consolation in times of grief or pain. What happened there that morning was that a nurse had left a breakfast trolley unattended. And very soon this trolley was commandeered by an intrepid crew of two, a driver and a mechanic. The mechanic provided motor power by galloping along behind the trolley with his head down, while the driver, seated on the mower deck, held on with one hand and steered by scraping his foot on the floor. The choice of roles was easy because the mechanic was totally blind and the driver had only one arm. Intrepid, bold and daring. How was the unattended trolley put to use? The unattended trolley was put to use by the two little patients as their vehicle. They drove it happily.
What roles did the duo take up? The duo took up the role of a mechanic and a driver. Why did the choice of roles prove to be easy for them? The choice of roles was easy because the mechanic was totally blind and the driver had only one arm.
They put on quite a show that day. Judging by the laughter and shouts of encouragement from the rest of the patients, it was a much better entertainment than anything anyone puts on at the Indianapolis 500 car race. There was a grand finale of scattered plates and silverware before the nurse and ward sister caught up with them, scolded them, and put them back to bed. Finale, climax, or an exciting end. Who encouraged them and how? The rest of the patients encouraged them by laughing and praising the duo. What does Dr. Barnard compare this entertainment to? Dr. Barnard compares this entertainment to the Indianapolis 500 car race. Let me tell you about these two. The mechanic was all of 7 years old. One night when his mother and father were drunk, his mother threw a lantern at his father, missed, and the lantern broke over the child's head and shoulders. He suffered severe third-degree burns on the upper part of his body and lost both his eyes. At the time of the Grand Prix, he was a walking horror, with a disfigured face and long flap of skin hanging from the side of his neck to his body. As the wound healed around his neck, his lower jaw became gripped in a mass of fibrous tissue. The only way this little boy could open his mouth was to raise his head. When I stopped by to see him after the race, he said, "You know, we won!" And he was laughing. Disfigured, spoiled, or marred in appearance. What happened in the grand finale? There was a grand finale of scattered plates and silverware before the nurse and ward sister caught up with them and put them back to bed. How did the boy who played the mechanic lose his eyesight? One night, when the boy's mother and father were drunk, his mother threw a lantern at his father. It missed, and the lantern broke over the child's head and shoulders. He suffered severe third-degree burns on the upper part of his body and lost both his eyes. Why does Dr. Barnard describe the blind boy as a walking horror? Dr. Barnard described the blind boy as a walking horror because he had a disfigured face and a long flap of skin was hanging from the side of his neck to his body. The trolley's driver I knew better. A few years earlier, I had successfully closed a hole in his heart. He had returned to the hospital because he had a malignant tumour of the womb. A few days before the race, his shoulder and arm were amputated. There was little hope of his recovery. After the Grand Prix, he proudly informed me that the trolley's wheels were not properly oiled, but he was a good driver and he had full confidence in the mechanic. Malignant, here of diseases, very harmful to life. Tumour, diseased growth in some part of the body. Amputated, cut off by surgical operation. What were the problems the trolley driver suffered from? A few years earlier, the doctor successfully closed a hole in the trolley driver's heart. The boy had also a malignant tumor of the bone. His shoulder and arm were amputated a few days before the race. How does Dr. Barnard know the boy who played the trolley's driver? A few years earlier, the doctor had successfully closed a hole in the heart of the trolley's driver. He had returned to the hospital because he had a malignant tumor of the bone. A few days before the race, his shoulder and arm were amputated. There was little hope of his recovery. After the Grand Prix, he proudly informed the doctor that the trolley's wheels were not properly oiled, but he was a good driver and he had full confidence in the mechanic. Suddenly, I realized that these two children had given me a profound lesson in getting on with the business of living. Because of the business of living is joy in the real sense of the word, not just something for pleasure, amusement, recreation. The business of living is the celebration of being alive. Profound, very great. What was the profound lesson that Dr. Barnard learned from the boys? The profound lesson Dr. Barnard had learned from the boys was that the business of living is the celebration of being alive. He further learned that what you have lost is not important and what you have left is important. I had been looking at suffering from the wrong end. You don't become a better person because you are suffering, but you become a better person because you have experienced suffering. We can't appreciate light if we haven't known darkness, nor can we appreciate warmth if we have never suffered cold. These children showed me that it's not what we have lost that's important. What is important is what we have left. These two children had given me a profound lesson. Elucidate. Dr. Barnard realized that the children had given him a profound lesson in getting on with the business of living. It is a joy in real sense of word, not just something for pleasure, amusement and recreation. It is a celebration of being alive. Dr. Barnard had been looking at the suffering from the wrong end. He understood that the experience of suffering makes a person a better one. One cannot appreciate light if he has not known darkness. Similarly, warmth cannot be appreciated if one has experienced biting cold. The two children have shown Dr. Barnard that what you have left is more important than what you have lost.
Thanks for watching. Watch again part 1 and part 2 for better understanding.